The bedroom smelled of antiseptic and roses. Frank Harris lay in bed 3 days after triple
What is
bypass
this?
surgery, chest burning with each
$5,000 for
breath, pretending to
utilities.
sleep.
This has to be a
Through the
mistake.
medication
I
fog,
refuse to
voices
pay
drifted from the
this.
kitchen. "Mom, are we really doing this now?" Jeffrey's voice, nervous. "He just got home." "Your father is exhausted. This is perfect." Sharon's voice, cold and controlled. "Dr. Thompson confirmed the cognitive tests show confusion. We can use that." Frank's surgically repaired heart lurched. What cognitive
I know
tests?
it's hard right now, but
"But what if he checks the
we'll get through this
accounts?" Jeffrey
together.
asked. Sharon
I miss her
laughed.
so much.
"Jeffrey,
I
your
don't know if I
father
can
hasn't
keep
checked a
going.
statement in 20 years. He's brilliant with his little clocks, but hopeless with money. He gave me power of attorney. He trusts me completely." Little clocks. Frank had spent 40 years as a master horologist, restoring priceless automata for museums. Sharon had always dismissed his work as toys. "We need to move quickly on the guardianship petition," Sharon continued, "before Frank realizes what's happening." Guardianship petition. Frank lay motionless, staring at the ceiling. At 68, he'd just survived heart surgery. Now, he was discovering something worse. His wife of 42 years was planning to have him declared incompetent. He'd palmed one of tonight's sleeping pills, some instinct warning him. Now he knew why. Sharon thought he was a sentimental old fool. She was about to learn that fools who spend lifetimes studying hidden mechanisms know exactly how to build their own. Morning came with Sharon playing the concerned wife, cutting his oatmeal into small pieces, speaking in that patronizing baby talk voice. "Did you sleep well, honey? You were out like a light." "Like the dead," Frank said, voice deliberately weak. He palmed the morning pills while she turned away, old magician's trick his arthritic hands still remembered. When Sharon left for her yoga class, Frank moved, not quickly, his body wouldn't allow it, but deliberately. He made his way to Sharon's home office. The door was unlocked, everything aggressively organized in color-coded folders. He pulled open the investments drawer with hands suddenly steady. 40 years of precision work had trained his fingers for moments like this. Bank statements spread across the desk told a devastating story. Their main checking reduced from $47,000 to $3,200. Wire transfers to accounts Frank didn't recognize. $450,000 to Cascade Holdings LLC. Another $380,000 to Harris Family Trust. But the address was a Delaware registered agent, not their home. Over $2 million moved systematically in 3 months. Frank photographed everything with his old flip phone, the one Jeffrey said was too outdated. Thank God for stubbornness. He put everything back exactly as found, using the small irregularities in the stack to ensure proper placement. When you spend your life aligning micron-precise gears, you notice when something shifts even a millimeter. He was back at the kitchen table when Sharon returned, yoga mat over her shoulder, checking her phone with that private smile he was starting to recognize. "I'll probably just nap," Frank said when she announced grocery shopping. "Good. Rest is important." A perfunctory kiss on his forehead, then she was gone. Frank sat in the silent kitchen, listening to his grandfather clock ticking in the living room. That clock, his first major restoration at 26, kept perfect time because he'd rebuilt it from a box of parts through patience and observation. He could figure this out too. But first, he needed to know what Sharon had really been doing these past 6 months. The mail came at 11:30. Frank watched from the window, waited 5 minutes, then shuffled outside with his walker. February cold bit through his cardigan, but he'd worked through Boston winters in an unheated garage for decades. He could handle this. The credit card statement was there. Chase, a card they'd gotten years ago for workshop expenses. Sharon had added her name just in case. Inside, Frank opened it carefully, preserving the envelope. Regular charges at first. CVS, Netflix, Whole Foods. Then his breath stopped. The Ashford Room, $380, Boston's most expensive restaurant, the place with the year-long wait list. 2 weeks ago, Thursday, when Sharon said she was at a church charity meeting. She'd come home at 10:30, flushed and happy. He kept reading. The Liberty Hotel, $220, Blue Hill Spa and Resort, $485, 2 more charity meetings that were lies. Frank's hands clenched white-knuckled around the paper. 42 years of marriage, and Sharon was spending hundreds on hotels and dinners while planning to have him declared incompetent. He forced himself to breathe. To think. He couldn't confront her. She was too prepared, too smart. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. His eyes drifted to the living room mantel, to the ornate bull bracket clock sitting there. French, 1780s, tortoiseshell and brass inlay. He'd acquired it 20 years ago from a client. Sharon had hated it on sight. "It's so gaudy, Frank. Can't we put it in the garage?" But Frank had insisted. A masterpiece, he'd argued. What he hadn't told her, the clock had a perfect view of the entire living room, the sofa where Sharon spent her evenings, the front door, the hallway. Frank looked at the clock with new eyes. He'd spent 40 years working with hidden mechanisms, time to build one of his own. "Sharon, I need to work on something." Next morning at breakfast, Frank made his hands tremble around his coffee cup. "My hands." The doctor said fine motor exercises, physical therapy. "The therapist comes next week." "I could fix that clock, the one on the mantel. Small movements, turning screws. It would help. Give me something to focus on." He gestured vaguely at his chest, voice uncertain. "My mind feels so fuzzy from the medication." Sharon sighed, martyr-accepting burden. "Fine, just don't overdo it." He waited until she left, then went to his garage workshop. The space smelled of machine oil and old wood. Tools hung in precise rows, jeweler's loops, microscopic tweezers, miniature screwdrivers, brass calipers. Surgeon's tools for a surgical operation. Frank opened the package he'd ordered with a prepaid card Sharon didn't know about. Pinhole camera module, voice-activated recorder, battery pack, all smaller than his thumb. He put on his magnifying loupe and lifted the Boule clock to his workbench. 8 tiny brass screws removed the back panel. Inside, beautiful brass gears, golden with age. Frank removed the chime mechanism, leaving a perfect hollow cavity. The recorder went there, secured with a brass bracket. Next, the camera. He studied the ornate front, found a decorative rosette with a tiny shadow at its center. Using a 0.8mm drill bit, watch repair size, he widened the hole by a fraction, just enough for the lens. From the front, invisible. From inside, perfect view of the living room. He connected everything to the battery pack, tested it with his old smartphone.
What is this?
The one he'd claimed was too
$5,000 for
confusing.
utilities.
The
This
screen
has to
showed
be a
his workbench
mistake.
in crystal
I refuse
clarity.
to pay this.
The microphone picked up the furnace clicking on. Perfect. Frank reassembled the clock, carried it back to the mantel, heavier now, weighted with purpose. Sharon came home as he settled into his recliner, flushed from her yoga class. "How's the clock?" "Frustrating. Couldn't get it working. Might be beyond fixing." "I could have told
it's
you
hard
that,
right now,
useless
but
old thing."
we'll get through this together.
She stopped herself before
I miss
finishing
her
her
so
thought.
much. I don't know
"Just
if I
like
can
me,"
keep going.
Frank completed silently. He looked at the clock. Sharon thought she understood complex systems, but she'd never understood that the most important mechanisms are the ones you cannot see. That evening, Sharon announced a late church fundraising meeting. Frank watched her careful makeup, expensive new perfume, constant phone checking. "Don't wait up. Won't be back until 11. Drive safe, dear." Frank waited 5 minutes after she left, then pulled out his phone. The camera feed loaded. Empty living room, sofa, front door, all captured perfectly. He went to his bedroom, lay down with earbuds hidden under his blanket, phone showing the living room feed. At 9:47 p.m., the doorbell rang. On screen, Sharon opening the door. A man stepped inside. Frank zoomed in, and his blood turned to ice. Dr. William Thompson, his cardiologist. The man who'd performed his pre-op evaluation, who'd patted Frank's shoulder and said, "You're in excellent hands." Thompson pulled Sharon into a deep, passionate kiss. "Is he really asleep?" Thompson's voice came through the earbuds. Sharon laughed coldly. "Out cold. I gave him the sedative you prescribed. The strong one." The sedative Thompson prescribed. The medication Sharon gave him every night. "Did you file the healthcare proxy?" Thompson asked. "Yesterday. You're now my co-decision maker if anything happens to him." Thompson removed his jacket, settling onto the sofa. "What if he has another cardiac event?" "These things happen, post-op complications. He's 68, Bill, heart already damaged." "Sharon, we need to be careful. I've been careful for 20 years, pretending to care about his boring workshop, his stupid clocks." Sharon's voice turned sharp. "I'm tired of being careful." 20 years. This wasn't new. This had been happening while Frank built their life with his hands. "The guardianship petition is ready," Sharon continued. "Robert has the documentation. Your cognitive assessment, the assessment I didn't perform, Thompson said quietly. Frank was too medicated to remember. We have documented evidence of confusion. It's perfect. Frank lay in darkness, listening to his wife and his doctor, the man he'd trusted with his heart, discuss having him locked away. Thompson poured whiskey from Frank's cabinet. To freedom. Sharon clinked her glass. To freedom, and Frank's comfortable care at Evergreen. They laughed together. Frank turned off the screen. His hand, perfectly steady now, reached under the mattress for a yellowed business card. Leonard Finch, attorney at law. Theodore Graves had given it to him in 1989, along with bearer bonds Frank never told Sharon about. If you ever need real help, call Leonard. He understands men who build things. Frank had never called, never needed to, until now. Tomorrow, he would start building the mechanism that would dismantle Sharon's perfect plan, piece by piece, gear by gear, until nothing remained but the truth. Frank didn't sleep that night. He lay in darkness, earbuds in, phone hidden under his pillow, listening and recording. Over the next 3 days, he gathered pieces of the puzzle. Day 2. Thompson returned. They were getting comfortable with their routine, careless with Frank drugged in the next room. What about Jeffrey? Sharon asked. He's been asking questions. Your son needs to stay focused, Thompson said. The cognitive assessment I'm preparing will be airtight. Post-operative delirium, confused thinking, inability to manage complex decisions. Frank's jaw clenched. Thompson was fabricating medical records. Jeffrey's worried Frank might contest the trust, Sharon said. That's why we need guardianship. Once I testify he's mentally incompetent, the court appoints you guardian. He can't contest anything. Sharon's voice turned sharp. I didn't spend 20 years managing every penny, building that portfolio from his pathetic workshop income, just to split it 50-50 in divorce court. The guardianship gives me everything. Frank's mind raced. This wasn't about love or betrayal anymore. This was about money, cold, calculated theft dressed up as concerned caregiving. Robert has the documents ready? Sharon asked. Your lawyer's been thorough. Once the petition's filed, it moves fast. Emergency hearing, maybe 2 weeks. And then? Evergreen memory care. I have admitting privileges. Private room, very comfortable. Sharon laughed. Until nature takes its course. Sharon, Thompson's voice carried warning. I'm not suggesting anything, Bill. Just acknowledging reality. He's 68, post-op, weak heart. These things happen, especially with the right medication adjustments. Frank's blood ran cold. They weren't just planning to lock him away. They were discussing how long he might conveniently survive there. Day 4. A third voice joined them. Male, professional, unfamiliar. Mrs. Harris, the Cayman account is operational. The voice was precise, lawyerly. Once guardianship is granted, we transfer everything. Clean, legal, irreversible. What about the house? Sharon asked. As guardian, you can sell immediately. Market value approximately $1.2 million. The judge won't question asset liquidation for care expenses. Perfect. And Frank? Thompson answered. Evergreen is expensive, $8,000 monthly. Very reasonable considering the level of care. The lawyer, Robert, Frank assumed, continued. I've structured everything as a revocable trust with you as sole trustee. Your husband has no access, no oversight, no legal standing once incompetency is declared. Frank listened to them divide his life like accountants balancing a spreadsheet, the house he'd bought 40 years ago. The money he'd earned through decades of painstaking craftsmanship. His freedom, his dignity, his remaining years. All of it, parceled out between his wife, his doctor, and a lawyer he'd never met. But they'd made one critical error. They thought Frank was simple, a craftsman who didn't understand complex systems. They forgot that the most complex mechanisms are often the simplest in design. Day 5, morning. Frank waited until Sharon left, then went to his garage. Past the workbench, under the massive cast-iron lathe that hadn't moved in a decade, was a floor safe. The combination was his wedding anniversary.
$5,000 for utilities.
Inside,
This
a leather
has to be a
portfolio
mistake.
he hadn't
I
opened in
refuse to
34
pay this.
years. He pulled it out, hands trembling slightly, not from weakness, from anticipation. Inside, 20 bearer bonds, each embossed with elaborate scrollwork, Swiss instruments, untraceable, and a letter on heavy cream stationery. Theodore Graves, 1989. Frank remembered the commission. The Phoenix,
I know it's
a
hard
mechanical
right now,
bird
but
that rose from
we'll get
ashes
through
through an
this
intricate
together.
system of springs
I
and
miss her
cams.
so much.
3
I don't know
years
if
of
I can
work,
keep going.
every component hand fabricated. His masterpiece. When he'd delivered it, Graves had pushed the portfolio across the table. Mr. Harris, this is worth far more than $75,000. These are bearer bonds, untraceable. Insurance for a man who understands hidden mechanisms. Mr. Graves, this is too much. I have a daughter, Catherine. Brilliant woman, became a judge, family law. She thinks I'm obsessed with objects instead of people. Graves smiled sadly. Maybe she's right, but you, Mr. Harris, create beauty. Keep this safe. You've earned it. Frank had locked them away, telling no one. Not from dishonesty, but because his workshop income was comfortable and he didn't fully understand their value. Now he pulled out the letter with account information. A Zurich private bank. A contact name, Leonard Finch, Graves Family Trust Attorney. Frank went to his workbench, pulled out his old tablet and dialed. The phone rang twice. A dry, precise voice answered. Finch. Mr. Finch, this is Frank Harris. Theodore Graves gave me your number in 1989. A pause. Mr. Harris, I wondered if you'd ever call. Those bonds have been managed conservatively, with interest and dividends currently valued at $4.7 million. Frank's chest tightened, not from surgery, but from shock. Your Zurich account has been accruing since 1989. Shall I prepare statements? Mr. Finch, Frank said quietly, I need a lawyer. A very good one. I suspected you might. What's the situation? Frank told him. Everything. The recordings, the conspiracy, Sharon's plan. Finch listened without interruption. When Frank finished, Mr. Harris, you've built an excellent case. Let them proceed with the hearing. I'll appear as your counsel. They won't expect opposition. And when they present their fabricated evidence, we'll dismantle it piece by piece. What about the recordings? Massachusetts is one-party consent. You recorded conversations in your own home, perfectly admissible. What judge is hearing the case? Frank checked the documents he'd intercepted. Catherine Barnes, Family Court. Silence. Then, Theodore's daughter. Interesting. You know her? I managed her father's estate. She became a judge specifically to fight the kind of corruption her father represented, powerful men manipulating systems. Mr. Harris, Judge Barnes will be very interested in your case. Can you be ready in a week? Mr. Harris, I've been ready since 1989. Day 6. Frank needed one more piece, medical evidence. Sharon kept a laptop in her office. Frank had watched her log into medical portals dozens of times, never paying attention. Now he paid attention. Her password was written on a post-it note stuck inside her desk drawer, amateur hour. Frank logged into the patient portal for Thompson's cardiology practice. His file was extensive, pre-op workup, surgical notes, post-op care. Then he found it, cognitive assessment report dated 3 days post-surgery. Patient demonstrates significant post-operative confusion, unable to recall current date, family members' names, or recent medical history. Oriented to person only. Recommendations: neurological evaluation, consideration of dementia workup, discussion of care placement options. Frank stared at the screen. He'd never been given this assessment. Thompson had documented a test that never happened. He kept reading. Medication list, sedative dosage, increased 3 times normal. New medication added, known to cause confusion in elderly. Notes: patient requested higher doses for sleep management. False. Frank had never requested anything. He found email exchanges between Thompson and Sharon, archived in her account. Thompson to Sharon. I've documented 3 episodes of confusion. That should be sufficient for the court. Sharon to Thompson. Perfect. I'm keeping a journal of incidents at home, forgetting where he put things, asking repeated questions, building the narrative. This wasn't just an affair. This was systematic fraud. Frank took screenshots of everything, emailed them to his own secure account, then erased the browser history. Day 8. Frank intercepted the mail before Sharon came home. Large manila envelope, official seal, notice of emergency guardianship hearing. Petitioner, Sharon Harris. Respondent, Frank Harris. Grounds, mental incapacity due to post-surgical cognitive decline. Expert witness, Dr. William Thompson, MD. Hearing date, 6 days away. Court, Suffolk County Family Court, Judge Catherine Barnes. Frank's heart, his patched, stapled heart, beat faster. Catherine Barnes, Theodore Graves's daughter. He researched her online. 58 years old, appointed to bench 12 years ago, known as tough, fair, and tolerant of fraud, specialized in elder abuse cases. Her father had said she became a judge to punish men like him, manipulative, money-focused. What would she think of a woman doing exactly that? Frank couldn't contact her directly, ex parte violation, but Finch would know how to present evidence through proper channels. The hearing was in 6 days. Sharon thought she had 6 days to a guaranteed victory. She had 6 days until her world collapsed. Day 10. Jeffrey arrived alone, looking uncomfortable. Sharon was shopping. "Dad, we need to talk about your health." Frank studied his son. Jeffrey was 32 but looked younger, uncertain, perpetually boyish. He'd never quite launched, never found direction. Sharon had always enabled him. "What about it, son?" "Mom's worried. Dr. Thompson says you've been confused, forgetting things." "Do I seem confused to you, Jeffrey?" Jeffrey avoided eye contact. "Sometimes. Last week, you couldn't find your wallet." "I didn't lose it. Your mother moved it to the kitchen counter. I found it there." Dr. Thompson ran tests. "What tests, Jeffrey?" Frank's voice was gentle but firm. "He never tested me. Did you see him test me?" Jeffrey faltered. "He said, Mom said..." "Jeffrey, look at me. Really look. Am I confused?" Jeffrey's eyes welled up. "I don't know what to believe anymore. Mom shows me papers, doctor reports, but you seem fine." "Son, what is your mother planning?" Jeffrey broke. "She says it's to protect you, to protect the family. She says you can't handle finances anymore, that you'll make bad decisions."
What
And
is
what do you
this?
think?
$5,000
silence.
for utilities.
"I think I've
This
been
has
lying
to
to
be a
myself,
mistake.
because
I
it's easier
refuse
than
to pay
believing
this."
Mom would." He couldn't finish. Frank pulled out one document, a wire transfer statement. $450,000 moved to an offshore account. "Did you know about this?" Jeffrey stared, shocked. "No, she said she was consolidating retirement funds." "Does this look like consolidation?" Jeffrey's face crumbled. "Oh, God.
I know it's hard
Dad,
right now, but
what have I
we'll
done?
get through this together.
I've been helping her.
I
I told her
so
things.
much. I
When
don't
you
know if
seemed
I can
tired,
keep
when you
going.
forgot something minor, she wrote it all down. I thought I was helping protect you, but I was just helping her build a case." "I'm so sorry." Jeffrey was crying now. "What can I do?" Frank considered. Jeffrey weak, easily manipulated, but not evil. Sharon had used him like she'd used everyone else. "Jeffrey, do you love your mother?" I don't know anymore." "Then here's what you can do. Tomorrow, she'll ask you to testify at the hearing about my confusion, my decline. You're going to say yes." "What?" "Trust me, say yes. Then when you're on that witness stand, you're going to tell the truth, everything. Can you do that?" Jeffrey wiped his eyes. "You recorded them, didn't you? Mom and Dr. Thompson." Frank didn't answer. "Dad, whatever you need, I'll do it. I'll tell the truth." Day 11. Jeffrey called Sharon, speakerphone. Frank listened from his bedroom, recording everything. "Mom, I'm worried about tomorrow. What if Dad fights it?" "He won't. He's too weak, too confused. Even if he tries, Dr. Thompson's testimony will bury him." "But what if he hired a lawyer?" Sharon laughed. "With what money? I control everything." "Can you and Dr. Thompson come over tonight? I need to understand the plan." "Fine, 9 o'clock. They arrived together. Thompson, Sharon, and a third man Frank recognized from photos, Robert Caldwell, estate attorney. Frank's camera captured everything in perfect detail. They settled on his sofa, drinks poured, completely comfortable. "Walk me through it again," Jeffrey said. "I want to make sure I say the right things." Caldwell opened his briefcase. "Once guardianship is granted, Mrs. Harris has full control. The trust restructuring is complete. Your father has no legal standing." "What about the house?" Sharon asked. "Sold immediately. As guardian, you're authorized to liquidate assets for his care." Thompson leaned forward. "Evergreen costs $8,000 monthly. Very reasonable." "How long do patients typically stay?" Sharon's voice was cold, clinical. "With his cardiac history, could be months, could be years." "And if his condition deteriorates?" Thompson hesitated. "Sharon, we've discussed. I just want to understand the timeline, Bill. Post-operative patients on anticoagulants are high risk. If dosage is miscalibrated, even slightly, it can cause internal bleeding. Fatal, but looks like natural complication. Caldwell shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Thompson, I should clarify. My role is strictly financial management. Of course, Thompson said smoothly. I'm simply explaining medical realities. Complications happen. Nature takes its course. Sharon raised her glass. To nature, then. Jeffrey's voice was shaky. And Dad never knows? Your father, Sharon said, venom dripping, will die in that facility thinking I loved him. The pathetic old fool spent 42 years in that garage playing with broken toys while I built our real life. Tomorrow, I finally get what I earned. Thompson clinked his glass against hers. To freedom. To freedom, Sharon echoed. And to Frank's very comfortable, very brief stay at Evergreen. They laughed. In his bedroom, Frank stopped the recording. He had everything now. The conspiracy, the fraud, the medical malpractice, the implicit discussion of manslaughter through dosage miscalibration. And tomorrow, in Catherine Barnes's courtroom, with Leonard Finch as his attorney and Jeffrey as his witness, Frank was going to play it all. Sharon thought she understood systems, understood how to manipulate complex structures for her benefit, but she'd forgotten something crucial. The most devastating mechanisms are the ones you never see coming. Frank looked at his phone. 5:47 a.m. The hearing was at 9 o'clock. Time to go to court. Suffolk County Family Court, 9 o'clock a.m. Frank shuffled into the courtroom, leaning heavily on his walker, wearing his oldest cardigan with the frayed collar. He'd skipped shaving, left his hair uncombed. He looked every bit the confused, declining old man Sharon's petition described. Sharon sat at the petitioner's table in a tailored navy suit, hair perfect, the picture of a devoted wife bearing a sad burden. Beside her, Robert Caldwell arranged documents with practiced efficiency. Behind them in the gallery, Dr. Thompson sat in expensive casual clothes, radiating professional authority. They all watched Frank's shuffling entrance with barely concealed satisfaction. The respondents' table was empty. No lawyer, no representation, exactly as they'd planned. Caldwell leaned toward Sharon, whispering something. She smiled, small, tight, victorious. At 9:02, the bailiff called, "All rise." The Honorable Judge Catherine Barnes presiding. Judge Barnes entered. A stern woman in her late 50s, dark hair pulled back severely, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. She took the bench with economical movements. You may be seated. As everyone sat, the courtroom door opened. Leonard Finch entered. 70-something, distinguished, carrying a leather briefcase that had probably cost more than Sharon's car. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who'd practiced law for 50 years and won most of his cases. Your Honor, Leonard Finch appearing for Respondent Frank Harris. I apologize for the late notice, but Mr. Harris retained me only yesterday. Caldwell shot to his feet. Your Honor, we weren't notified of opposing counsel. Mr. Harris is entitled to representation, Mr. Caldwell. Judge Barnes's voice was neutral, but her eyes had sharpened with interest. Proceed. Sharon's face had gone pale. This wasn't in the script. Caldwell recovered quickly, smoothing his tie. Your Honor, this is a tragic but straightforward matter. Mr. Harris, sadly, is no longer capable of managing his affairs. We've submitted extensive medical documentation from Dr. William Thompson showing significant post-operative cognitive decline. Objection, foundation. Finch's voice cut cleanly through the courtroom. Has Dr. Thompson been qualified as an expert in neurology or psychiatry? He's Mr. Harris's cardiologist. He's observed. Observation isn't diagnosis, Your Honor. Unless Dr. Thompson has credentials in cognitive assessment, his opinion on mental capacity is speculation. Judge Barnes looked at Caldwell. Do you have a qualified neuropsychologist to testify?
$5,000 for utilities.
We relied on Dr. Thompson's medical opinion as treating physician.
I refuse to
Your
pay
Honor,
this.
may I approach? Finch was already moving forward with a manila envelope. He handed it to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Neuropsychological evaluation conducted 2 days ago by Dr. Rebecca Stone, board-certified neuropsychologist. Results show Mr. Harris's cognitive function is above average for his age. No signs of dementia, delirium, or impairment. Sharon's carefully maintained composure cracked, her mouth opened slightly, eyes wide. Caldwell scrambled. Your Honor, Dr. Thompson's records clearly document records created without patient consent or proper examination, Finch interrupted smoothly. He produced another document. Medical portal access logs showing Mrs. Harris accessed her husband's patient records 47 times in 3 months. She has no legal authority. HIPAA violation. He laid out more papers like a card dealer. Pharmacy records showing Dr. Thompson prescribed sedatives at triple standard dosage without patient consultation. Bank statements showing wire transfers totaling $2.3 million to offshore accounts. Mrs. Harris has healthcare power of attorney only, not financial. These transfers were unauthorized. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. "Your Honor," Caldwell protested, "Mrs. Harris was protecting marital assets from her husband's declining judgment by moving them to accounts solely in her name." Finch's eyebrow raised. "In the Cayman Islands?" Judge Barnes leaned forward. "Mrs. Harris, did you authorize these transfers?" Sharon stood, voice steady despite her pallor. "Your Honor, my husband was in no condition to manage complex financial decisions. I was protecting our life savings from potential mistakes." "Or protecting them for yourself?" Finch said mildly. "Objection." Caldwell was on his feet. "Counsel is testifying." "Sustained," Judge Barnes said. "Mr. Finch, do you have evidence beyond financial irregularities?" "I do, Your Honor. I'd like to call a witness first." Finch turned to the courtroom. "The respondent calls Jeffrey Harris." The color drained from Sharon's face completely. She grabbed Caldwell's arm, whispering urgently. Thompson sat forward in the gallery, jaw clenched. Jeffrey stood from where he'd been sitting in the back. He walked to the witness stand on shaking legs, was sworn in. "Mr. Harris, you're the son of both petitioner and respondent?" Finch asked gently. "Yes, sir." "Did your mother discuss her plans for your father with you?" Jeffrey swallowed hard. "Yes." "What did she tell you?" Jeffrey looked at Sharon, then at Frank. His voice was quiet. "She said Dad was declining mentally, that we needed to protect him from himself, that the guardianship was for his own good." "Did you believe her?" "At first. But then," Jeffrey's voice strengthened. "Then I saw the bank transfers, the offshore accounts, and I started asking questions." "What did you learn?" "That my mother wasn't protecting Dad. She was stealing everything, and Dr. Thompson was helping her fake medical records." The courtroom erupted. Judge Barnes gavelled for order. Sharon was on her feet, face contorted with rage. "Jeffrey, you ungrateful!" "Mrs. Harris, sit down," Judge Barnes commanded. "He's lying. Your Honor, my son is confused." "Sit down." Sharon sat, trembling with fury. Finch continued calmly. "Your Honor, I have one more piece of evidence. Audio-video recording made by Mr. Harris in his own home." "Objection. Illegal wiretap. Massachusetts is one-party consent, Your Honor. Mr. Harris recorded conversations in his own home. Perfectly legal." Judge Barnes studied Finch for a long moment. Something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. Finch had managed her father's estate. She knew exactly who Theodore Graves had been. "I'll allow it. Proceed." The bailiff set up the audio system. Finch pressed play. The courtroom went silent. First, Sharon and Thompson's voices, clear and damning. "Is he really asleep?" "Out cold. I gave him the sedative you prescribed, the strong one." Then the conspiracy with Caldwell. "Once guardianship is granted, we transfer everything. The house sold immediately. He has no legal standing." Sharon's face was white as bone. Thompson had half risen from his seat, frozen. Then came the most damning exchange. "How long do patients typically stay at Evergreen?" "With his cardiac history, could be months, could be years." "And if his condition deteriorates?" "Post-operative patients on anticoagulants are high risk. If dosage is miscalibrated, it can cause internal bleeding. Fatal, but looks like natural complication." A collective gasp filled the courtroom. To nature, then. Sound of glasses clinking. The recording stopped. The silence was deafening. Dr. Thompson stood, face ashen. "Your Honor, I can explain. That was taken out of context." "Sit down, Dr. Thompson." "Bailiff, ensure Dr. Thompson doesn't leave this courthouse." Sharon stood, voice rising in desperation. "That recording is entrapment. He recorded me without my knowledge in my own home." "His home, Mrs. Harris," Finch corrected. "Which brings me to my next point. The house deed." He produced another document. "The house was transferred solely to Mrs. Harris's name 3 weeks ago via quitclaim deed. Mr. Harris's signature on this deed is forged. Handwriting analysis confirms it." Caldwell made one last desperate attempt. "Your Honor, even if there were financial irregularities, Mrs. Harris has been married to Mr. Harris for 42 years. Under Massachusetts law, she's entitled to half of all marital assets. Half of marital assets, yes, Finch agreed, but not assets Mr. Harris owned prior to marriage. Caldwell frowned. There are no remarital assets. We've reviewed everything. Finch opened his briefcase with theatrical precision. He pulled out a leather portfolio, aged and elegant. These are bearer bonds issued in 1989, 3 years before Mr. and Mrs. Harris married. Payment for craftsmanship from a private collector named Theodore Graves. Judge Barnes stiffened slightly, her father's name spoken aloud in her courtroom. Face value, $500,000. Current value with accrued interest, $4.7 million. Sharon's mouth fell open. That's impossible. Frank doesn't have money you knew about, Finch continued smoothly. Additionally, Mr. Harris has maintained a private account with Zurich Private Bank since 1989. Dividends have been reinvesting for 34 years. Current balance, $3.2 million. The courtroom exploded with noise. Sharon sat frozen, all color gone from her face. These assets were earned through Mr. Harris's work as a master horologist before your marriage, Mrs. Harris. They were never marital property. You have no claim to them whatsoever. Judge Barnes's expression remained neutral, but her eyes showed something.
What is
Respect,
this?
perhaps.
$5,000 for utilities.
Mr. Graves,
This has to be a
Finch said,
mistake.
looking
I
directly at the
refuse to
judge.
pay this.
Believed that craftsmen who create beauty should be protected from those who only see value in money. He was very specific about that. Judge Barnes gave the smallest nod. Her father's legacy, speaking across decades. Mr. Harris, she said, would you like to address the court? Frank stood slowly. He removed his cardigan,
I know it's hard
straightened
right
his
now,
shoulder.
but
The
we'll get through
confused,
this
shuffling
together.
old man was
I
gone.
miss her so much.
In
I don't
his
know if I
place
can keep
stood
going.
someone who'd spent 40 years working with precision and patience. Your Honor, I apologize for the theatrics, but I needed to know the full extent of my wife's plans before revealing what I knew. His voice was clear, strong, no trace of confusion. Sharon stared as if seeing a stranger. 42 years ago, I married Sharon thinking we were partners. I worked on my clocks. She managed finances. I trusted her completely. Frank's voice wavered slightly. That trust was my mistake. After my surgery, I heard them planning, not just to take my money, but my freedom, to lock me away. Dr. Thompson discussed dosage miscalibration like a weather forecast. They were planning to kill me, slowly, legally, with everyone thinking it was natural. He turned to Sharon. You called me a pathetic old fool. You were right about the fool part. I was foolish enough to trust you, foolish enough to think 42 years meant something. Sharon's tears now, real or calculated, unclear. Frank, I never wanted to hurt you. I sacrificed everything, my career, my dreams. I managed everything while you played with your toys. My toys, Frank said quietly. My useless junk. That useless junk just saved my life, because while you were stealing what you thought was everything, you missed what mattered most. He paused. Your Honor, I don't want revenge. I want justice. I want my wife prosecuted for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. I want Dr. Thompson's medical license revoked and criminal charges filed, and I want my freedom. Judge Barnes' expression was granite. Mr. Harris, this court finds no evidence of mental incapacity. In fact, you've demonstrated exceptional clarity and strategic thinking. She turned to Sharon. Mrs. Harris, I'm denying your petition for guardianship. Furthermore, I'm freezing all marital assets pending forensic audit. Bailiff, take Mrs. Harris and Dr. Thompson into custody. I'm issuing warrants for fraud, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, and attempted manslaughter. Sharon screamed as the bailiff approached. It's my money. I earned it. 42 years I put up with his boring life, his dusty workshop, his pathetic clocks. The mask was completely off. Pure rage. You were nothing without me, Frank. Nothing. I made you. I managed everything. Frank's voice was calm. No, Sharon. This is how you repaid me. The bailiff led them away, Sharon still screaming, Thompson silent and defeated. Outside the courthouse, Jeffrey approached hesitantly. Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have seen. You were manipulated, Jeffrey. Your mother is skilled at that. Can you forgive me? Frank considered. Forgiveness takes time. But you chose truth when it mattered. That counts for something. What happens now? Now, I go home, return to my workshop, and I build something. 6 months later, the Harris Foundation for Artisans occupied a restored Victorian building in Cambridge. Frank's workshop had been moved to the ground floor, expanded and modernized while keeping its essential character. Frank stood at his workbench, teaching a young apprentice named Emma how to repair an antique pocket watch. "Mr. Harris, why spend so much time on these old things?" Emma asked, adjusting her magnifying loupe. Frank carefully aligned a tiny gear. "Because these old things teach us something important." "What's that?" "That the most important mechanisms are hidden, the parts you can't see. Like trust, like integrity." He looked up at her. "And knowing when something is broken beyond repair, and when it's worth fixing." Jeffrey appeared in the doorway, carrying coffee. He worked at the foundation now, helping young craftspeople apply for grants, rebuilding his relationship with his father, one day at a time. On a shelf behind Frank's workbench sat the Bull clock, restored to working order. Its hidden camera had been removed, but Frank kept it as a reminder, not of betrayal, but of patience, of watching, of understanding that time reveals all mechanisms eventually. The clock ticked steadily, keeping perfect time. Emma bent over her work, learning to see what most people missed, the tiny components that made the whole function, the hidden springs that stored energy, the invisible pivots where everything turned. Frank watched her progress and smiled. He was 70 years old. He'd lost his wife, nearly lost his life, and discovered that 42 years of marriage had been built on lies. But he'd also discovered that the work of his hands, the useless toys Sharon had mocked, had value beyond money. They taught precision, patience, and the understanding that the most beautiful mechanisms are the ones that serve a purpose greater than themselves. Outside, Boston spring sunshine streamed through the windows. Inside, an old craftsman and a young apprentice bent over their work, building something that would last.